Good evening, one and all. Welcome to the Pink and Friday night preview show. Norwich City, of course, travel to Bristol tomorrow, as do me and Dave Freezer, which is why our surroundings are a little bit different to usual. They're, of course, looking to make it 5 games unbeaten, hopefully add another win to their tally this season. I'm joined by Paddy, Dave and Dave Freezer. So it probably seems best, and of course, I forgot to say at the start of the show, new surroundings is testing my memory a little bit. If you have any comments or questions over the next sort of half an hour or so, make sure you put them in the comments, and we'll try and get as many as possible to the guys as we can. Paddy, let's start with you then. Daniel Farke's press conference today. Probably the biggest in terms of injury news is that Xavi Quintilla will miss the game tomorrow. But again, the positive news is that he's probably going to be available for Tuesday's game against Millwall.
Oh, well, you say that, Connor, but given Christoph Zimmermann was supposed to be available after a matter of days, and I don't know how many we're getting into 2 weeks now. So I think he did caveat that answer by saying, let's not put an actual timeline on it. But that said, he expects it to be the other side of the weekend available for contention for Millwall. I was told after the game the other night that it was a bit of a fear it might be a few weeks rather than days. So if that is the case, then we'll get into it in more detail what they do tomorrow. That's the first port of call. But thereafter, that would be positive news, because if Xavi Quintilla is out for any length of time, then the sticking plaster is going to have to be attached for quite some period of time. No recognised left-back available tomorrow. Sam Barham's still injured, obviously. Sam McCallum playing tonight for Coventry on loan. He's on loan, and other than that, you're dipping into very young academy types. So that's the situation they're in. Daniel wasn't exuding distress signals today in terms of tomorrow's selection. As I say, we'll get into that in more detail. But ultimately, it's a concern, as it was with the centre-back situation. And no Christoph Zimmermann again tomorrow, just to broaden it out. Still this calf issue. That said, and we spoke to Daniel earlier today, they were going to train then thereafter this afternoon. That was supposed to be Christoph's first full contact session, having done a bit of light training in recent days. If he comes through that okay, may well travel to Bristol. But in terms of when could he be back in contention, that sounds more like Millwall. And also Josh Martin, similar situation, had a back complaint, doing some individual work at present, and I think Daniel said Sunday he will look to rejoin team training. So again, getting beyond this next game tomorrow, things might start to clear a little bit, but there's no doubt about it. Whether it's Jacob Sorensen, whether it's Max Aarons, whether you even go Bali Mumba, it's not the ideal scenario. And unfortunately, there'll be some supporters, I'm sure, will come on and say, well, you kind of reap what you sow, in terms of if you let McCallum go to Coventry and you have one recognised left-back, then it's almost sod's law that you could say that Paddy with the 2 centre-backs, but Touchwood, Gibson and Henry are back to stay fit, stay healthy, and they might just get away with that if Zimmermann is back in the fold next week. But by no means is it an ideal scenario, because ultimately I think Xavi Quintilla is very key to how they want to play with the ball as much as without.
Yeah, and it felt on Tuesday that with Quintilla missing, they perhaps didn't have the sort of supply line of productivity that maybe they've had in other games. Dave, I'll come to you, because if I just raise my eyes above my laptop, I can actually see where you're sat. But of course, crazy times. There we go. Crazy times means that we're not allowed to sort of sit next to each other, essentially. First and foremost, set the picture of where we are currently. And then secondly, I'll ask you a bit about Jakob Sorensen, who you were obviously at the Brentford Community Stadium the other night. Seemed to have a fairly impressive opening 90 minutes for Norwich City.
Yeah, reasonably, I suppose. Well, first off, can I just say, repping the England hoodie today, Ben Young's Norfolk boy, 100th cap for England on Sunday against Italy, when hopefully they get the Six Nations title wrapped up. Great to see a Norfolk boy, the second ever England player to reach 100 caps. So that's something to look forward to this weekend. But yes, this is glamour, mate. This is sat alongside the A14 in a American branded coffee shop, which I'm sure will not need too much description. And in general, it feels so strange, doesn't it, at the moment, to be doing away games. So many people are sat at home and not really leaving the Norfolk borders very much, and haven't really this year yet. me and Paddy are at Brentford on Tuesday. Me and you are making our way to a hotel stay, which we'd probably rather not have, to be honest, but at the moment. But Bristol City moved to a 12:30 kickoff, so of course that means an earlier day for us. And clearly, we're still so pleased to be able to get into the games. But it is quite a strange existence at the moment. So, yeah, what will Daniel do? I'm sure we're going to get plenty of comments in on that front. But Bristol City play a three at the back generally, don't they? So I would have thought that it's a safer approach to stick with Sorensen on the right of a back three as they finished the game at Brentford on Tuesday. And probably the safest option would be to move Max Aarons to the left and then have Barley Mumba come in on the right. I wouldn't have thought that's hugely disruptive, but from what Daniel has said at this press conference and in previous press conferences, he likes to keep the disruption to an absolute minimum, doesn't he? So we shall see. One little, I like my little rogue theories that Pad hears these in the car all the time, and Connor's just heard one. I would quite like to see Kenny McLean as the left wing back. I think he could be really well suited to it, and he may not be massively keen, but he's a proper left footer. He knows how to tackle. He knows how to deal with it in the air. He's an experienced player. He's not slow. I think he could actually thrive as a left wing back, whereas he's not really, despite that goal, very lucky goal on Tuesday night. I don't think he's really got a major claim to playing in the centre at the moment. So I'd be quite keen to see that, but I'm not expecting it.
No, I would agree. I think Daniel, judging by today's comments, and we'll come to Pad in a minute on that, seem to want to pursue the continuity of what they've got at the moment. Thank you for all your comments. We'll get through those a little bit later on. But Pad, let's come to you on that point, and a point made by Matt Canning, who's in agreement with Dave. He says Aaron's to left back, Mumba right back. Otherwise, as you were. Do you see Barley Mumba being chucked in? Obviously, we saw him in the League Cup game. He won a lot of plaudits for his performance on that occasion, but yet to really see him in the league for Norwich City. Do you think that's a plausible option, or do you think Daniel Farke will stick with Jakob Sorensen?
I'd be surprised if he goes Sorensen again. I mean, as much as he was solid enough, if you look back at the highlights, he's not a left back, and he was caught out twice in the box. The brilliant save of Tim Krul was Ivan Toney getting above him. And on that front, he's not alone, because Grant Hanley struggled to deal with that man. And there was the Dalsgaard chance, I think, in the second half that Tim Krul saved with his legs. That was, again, Sorensen back post, not a defender, doesn't sense danger, and was on his heels. So, fair enough. He did what was required, thrown in a deep end midweek. But no, I personally wouldn't be happy to see him starting left-sided again. For me, I'd much rather see Barley Mumba on the right and Max on the left. And Daniel, we all know, Max being the key example. Portman Road, white hot heat of a East Anglian derby. On you go, son. There's your debut in the Championship. Not that dissimilar to this stage of that season. So I don't think any of us should be surprised if Barley Mumba was on the team sheet come 11:30 tomorrow. But I just think if it was at Carrow, possibly, but an away game against a team who are going to be thereabouts in the top 8 conversation, maybe not quite good enough over the entire piece to get in the top 6, but I can see him erring on the side of a bit of conservatism, and he's already referenced it both after the game midweek and again today, talking through the options, and that was Rupp on the right back, Max to left back, and Dave's not going to want to hear it, but I think that then opens up a spot for Kenny McLean to come in alongside Oliver Skipp. They were the two at the start of the season, they were the two all through pre-season, and Kenny didn't quite hit the levels required. In came Lucas Rupp. And I think that's probably how Daniel will look to go. He quite clearly, to take the point you were developing earlier there, Connor, I don't think he's a man who's going to start with 3 at the back tomorrow. He seems to be very wedded to, he feels 4 is a more solid base to start a game. And then obviously demonstrated the other night, they finished with a 3 because they were chasing the game. He's got no issue, it seems, changing to that formation during the game. But to start with a 3, I don't think so. I don't see it personally. So that would be my call. He'll probably surprise us all again, as he did his coaches the other night, because, as he said, they were ready to kill him when he was saying, let's go with Sorensen, because I think they were a bit nonplussed as well. But, okay, if that one paid off, I don't see him repeating the experiment. So for me, personally, Rupp right back, Aaron's left back, Kenny Mack in alongside Skipp, and hopefully that means Barley Mumba gets a slot on the bench, because one thing with him, Daniel, if you draw a parallel with McCallum, which is pertinent because they've allowed McCallum to go out, it's quite clear that Daniel feels this guy is a lot closer to being an option for his first team than Sam McCallum was. Hence why there was no chance he was going out on loan anywhere. Really impressed with him. Really feels he's not almost one of those kind of like Adam Eder has had to go through that process, and Josh Martin where they're just sort of hovering between the development and a first team. For him, Barley Mumba is a serious first team option. So maybe not tomorrow from the start, but I'd imagine he'll be in the 18. But as I say, I think it's got to be erring on the side of a little bit of caution, and we'll see how that one plays out if it is Rupp and Aarons as the two fullbacks.
For me, the key word you mentioned there is disruption and maybe the lack of it that Daniel Farke's after. And whilst we talk about this, let's hear from Norwich City's head coach on a potential change to three at the back and why he might decide to stick with that four.
Yes, we are always flexible, and we've shown this also during all the recent games. So of course it's possible to do this, and I want us to be flexible. But it's also important that we are not just because one player is out, we have to change our whole setup anyhow. So this would also make no sense. So of course, so when we got the feeling it's the right choice to switch to three-man formation, it's definitely possible. We have turned some games exactly also in this way, but it has to make sense, and not just like to because right now our first choice left fullback is not available, that we have to change our whole setup. Although we think four-man formation would be better, we wouldn't do this. So just in case we have the feeling, okay, it's also really the right choice then for this game.
We'll come to your comments in a moment, Dave. Let's just pick up on what Daniel was saying there and what Pad was alluding to in terms of the formation side of things and this 4-2-3-1 that we seem to see sort of every week from Daniel Farke. Maybe you want to argue it's a 4-1-4-1 or variations of it. It's up to you in and out of possession. We all know they're fairly flexible, but it does seem like he in particular seems quite wedded to this system as a way to start games before maybe looking to evolve it a bit later on, dependent on the game, which is perhaps a bit more adaptation to what we saw last season to some extent.
Yeah, he's never seemed keen on it, has he? Especially like in his first season, we saw closer Hanley Zimmerman as a three on several occasions, but it was when injuries had become a problem and things like that, hadn't it? And I think he feels it sacrifices too much going forward, and he's not all right. He's not rock and roll football Klopp style, but he is a manager who likes to attack, isn't he? He would rather win a game 4-3 than 1-0, I would have said, although he probably would never go on record and say that, because he likes his teams to produce entertaining attacking football, doesn't he? So I think it's much more likely that he goes with, if he was to go with three at the back, that he would go with what Paddy has mapped out there in terms of putting Rupp on the right and Aarons to the left and keeping things quite simple, and also totally agree with Pad that Sorensen, I don't think, looked particularly comfortable. Wasn't helped by the fact that Todd Cantwell had a bit of a mare. I don't really know what went wrong for Todd on Tuesday night, but certainly a forgettable evening for him. And I was kind of astonished to see the post-match stats that Sorensen had the most touches of any player in the Norwich team. And I guess that is partly because he was pretty good once he'd switched to the right of the back three and linked with Aarons quite nicely. But yeah, the foundation of the success under Daniel Farke has been that 4-2-3-1, and like you say, he tried the 4-1-4-1 to start with, but as he has said recently again, isn't he? He's not obsessed with base formations as he calls them. It's fluid, Todd Cantwell and Eddie Buendia aren't wingers, are they? They are nominally out there. It's almost, if anything, become with Pookie just behind Hugel, it's almost becoming more of 4-2-2-2, which is what Brighton have had a bit of success with last season, haven't they? And I've seen a few teams using it. I'm a little bit surprised that Daniel hasn't become more enthusiastic about three at the back, given the success that a lot of clubs have had. You look at Wolves particularly, and Leicester, and lots of teams who managed to get established in the Premier League have started using that three at the back more and more. So we shall see. But yeah, I think we're all pretty surprised when a team drops and Daniel isn't playing a 4-2-3-1 or at least a variant of. Can I just ask, actually?
Yeah.
Pad, is that a new bit of artwork behind you, or have I missed this edition? Because it's lovely.
Thank you, mate. Yeah, it's I'm sure anybody can tell it's supposed to be a nice mosaic of the. I'm looking the wrong way. Mosaic of the market. Yeah, the old market. Funnily enough, nice reference. Wasn't that where Barley Mumba was pictured, like literally before he'd confirmed his signing, mooching about the market? Yeah. So there you go, Barley. You can have that off me if you want it. for a bit of bunts. But no, mate, no. Literally, what I've done here is I've moved about 5 feet the other way because it was getting darker and darker, and I'm right underneath the light now. So that's all it is, mate. Not a new piece of artwork, just an existing piece. Yeah.
Nice. I'm liking your commitment. We've converted you to a proper Norwich man.
Oh yeah, that's it, mate. Yeah, just need to work on the accent now, mate.
Exactly. Yeah, we'll line that up for a future episode, maybe. Pad, we'll kickstart some of the comments we've got. We'll start with the Dubai Canary, who said, "Evening all. Thanks for watching. The games are coming thick and fast at the moment, but City is standing up well with 10 points from a possible 12 in the last 2 weeks." AD Sedgwick said, "Hi guys, hope you're well. For me, has to be the same team tomorrow. Apart from, I would have Vrancic on the bench. I honestly think he's better as an impact sub. What do you guys think?" Pad, I'll throw that to you. How did you think he did on Tuesday? I didn't necessarily feel it was a game that perhaps suited him. Particularly compared to, let's say, Birmingham or Wickham, the games that he did turn.
I absolutely agree. Yeah, I mean, Brentford were very good when they moved the ball and the speed they moved as well. It was a complete cut above anything Norwich have had this season, and he was, for me, too often the wrong side of the ball. And the reality was then when he's the wrong side of the ball and Norwich aren't completely dominating possession as they did against Birmingham, Wickham, Derby, Bournemouth. That's not really Mario's game. I thought it was, on balance, not a slight on Mario, because that was a very difficult game for Norwich per se. You know, even before you got to the sort of late change with Quintilla out and Sorensen in. But I don't think it would have advanced the argument that he should be starting games. But that's, for me, not necessarily. You shouldn't consign that to, right, that's it now, he is a super sub. I think you hit the nail on the head, Connor. It is the type of game that gets the best out of him. If it's the type of game or a time within a game where you can get him on the ball, Norwich are on the front foot, they've got the game in front of them, then, yeah, Mario, get him on the pitch. But too often, certainly until probably the final quarter, I felt that was a game that wasn't really set up for Mario. And it was a shame, because obviously if he goes and has a very good, strong, influential performance that night, then that might put it to bed for the foreseeable, and he is Norwich's number 10 moving forward. But I still think, and I accept the comment, I think it wouldn't be a huge surprise for me if he's back on the bench tomorrow, because I think it wasn't a compelling enough argument. And that isn't solely at Mario Vrancic's door. I just think it wasn't the type of game that he could really show us what he's all about.
No, I'd agree. I remember Marco Stiepermann scoring a wonderful goal at Ashton Gate in that title-winning season. He swapped it in from outside the box, didn't he? So I just wonder whether we may see him tomorrow. Lisa Jack has said, useful point at Brentford, take the same at Bristol City and would mirror the results of the promotion season. Neil Luther's just put evening, lads. So evening, Neil. And then one I'll throw your way, Dave. You mentioned Todd perhaps not having the best of evenings at Brentford on Tuesday. Neil Jones has kind of picked up on your point. He says, needs Todd to step up again. Apart from his first game back, he's been quite poor. Might he not even start? So I'll throw that one over to you.
Yeah, as I said earlier, it was a very odd performance from Todd. He got very frustrated with himself. It was just one of those nights where the ball just wouldn't stick, and he got more and more annoyed, and he was apologising to teammates. And yeah, I don't know, to be honest. Unless, he went into that game with a hip problem, which Daniel had said might make him a slight doubt. He's not said that he has a slight doubt again for Saturday, has he? So, but I think Todd has always had a bit of a hip problem, because we often see him in the warm-ups ahead of games, and the whole time he's been with the first team, he often goes for a real rigorous stretching regime with his hips. So whether he's got a bit of an issue there, sort of long term, I don't know. Let's hope not, because that's what sort of meant that Darren Huckabee didn't have the longest of careers, did he? He still obviously played into his 30s, but hips certainly caused him problems. Anyway, Todd would certainly need to play a lot better than that. And you would have thought that Daniel will know that he's, as we do, because we saw against, Wickham early stages and against Birmingham and things like that he was finding that bit of rhythm. He was up against Dalsgaard, who's a good operator for Brentford. And that, as Pad said, it was a tough game. It was a scrappy game. Brentford are a good team. There's no doubt about it. But so are Bristol City. So, what's the other option really other than Todd at the moment? It's Shemek Paheta, and I didn't think he was very good, to be honest, when he came on in the second half. He didn't do a great deal. Didn't do much wrong, but other than one cross that he whipped into the box, they didn't get him the ball enough so that he could really run at players and cause problems. We haven't really seen much of him yet, have we? Other than maybe the Preston game when he scored that goal and he did score a few problems. So I think I would just about stick with Todd. But again, if he has another off day, then perhaps there's a bigger issue that they've got to explore there, just to make sure that he's at 100%.
Yeah, just on Poeta, I wonder if they did stick with Sorensen, maybe he would be a good option for the left-hand side. Obviously, Terrace Talk, you can watch that on our various pages. We had a Bristol City fan on who was talking about maybe Jack Hunt coming in, who he described, I think, as being in the twilight of his career and not the quickest. So maybe a player that Poeta could get at, possibly. Dave, your sort of idea on Kenny McLean is a split opinion, and I'll show you how via these two comments. Dan Mayhew said Kenny was who I was thinking. I guess he means presumably for that sort of left back position. I think he's been moved there before. And then Neil Luther says Kenny McLean left back, and then he goes on to cite his song, which I'm not going to sort of hurt anyone's eardrums by singing, but you can read it left for yourself.
I will add, I said left wing back. I wouldn't want him as a left back.
Okay.
So in a 3-5-2, I'd be happy with McLean.
Yeah, that's fair enough. I agree. I think that's a good point to make. Colin Anderson on Facebook, Bristol City away in 2018-19 changed on three at the back. I'm testing my memory there. Does he mean they started with three at the back or they moved to a three at the back? I don't know if any of your guys' memory serves.
Yes. Sorry, Pat. Aaron scored, didn't he? Aaron's got moved to the left, and if you remember, the equaliser was a Hernandez coming in from the right, nod it in the back. So Max had been moved to the left of a 3-5-2, hadn't he? And Hanley was on the pitch as well.
Yeah, absolutely spot on. Yeah, you've triggered my memory there. Matt Canning on Facebook has made a good point, Pad. I'll throw this one in your direction. He's put Tetty next to Ollie Skip. I've seen this argument made quite a bit this week that Ollie Skip maybe is, and we made the point last week, in fairness, maybe having a little bit of a dip at the moment. Does it make sense for you to bring in someone a bit more experienced next to, I don't know, Kenny McLean, Lucas Rook, whichever direction you go in, particularly for an away game against a side who harbour ambitions of finishing in the top six?
I think it's certainly a good shout. He hasn't kicked a ball, has he? So, he's basically a cheerleader on the bench for the opening 6 weeks. So in terms of his physical levels, he should be there. So that aspect wouldn't concern me at all. And that's a great point. Yeah, because I think Ollie Skip is showing signs of a bit, wow, this is the Championship. This is pretty gruelling every 3 days, like teams trying to run over the top of you. And he's in a position where you can't really hide on the pitch, particularly in a Farker team. He needs to be setting the tempo, him and Lucas Rupp, and I don't feel they've had that control enough for me, certainly against Brentford the other night. And they were chasing shadows for spells in the first half after they went behind, and in the second half as well. So that, again, I wouldn't be unduly alarmed if it was Tetty and Skip as opposed to McLean and Skip or Rupp and Skip. I just think, I think if there probably wasn't the disruption to the back four, it wouldn't have at all surprised me if he maybe dropped Skip out tomorrow and just gave him a bit of a breather. He kind of touched on that a few games ago, that you do have to take a step back and remember this is essentially his first full season of professional football. Very young man, highly rated, obviously at a very big club, may go on to have an excellent career, but it's not the easiest league to be learning your trade at the Championship, particularly with the expectation that he's on Norwich and in a Farker team where it's pivotal. That central midfield access is key to a lot of what they're trying to do and how he sets teams out. So, I think we probably will see him tomorrow, and it'll be interesting who he pairs with if he decides to go Rupp at right back. But beyond tomorrow, I think if the defensive side of the injuries tends to ease with Zimmerman and Quintia coming back fairly soon, I wouldn't be at all surprised if Skip just gets a little breather, because I don't see really what flogging him week in, week out if he's struggling a little bit. It might not be the physical side, it might just be the mental exertion on it, because it's such a responsible role that he's got in that side for such a young, inexperienced player. So, maybe not tomorrow, but I don't think it'll be that long before he might be getting a little breather.
I've got a couple of Tottenham supporting friends who basically made the argument to me earlier this week that Norwich City aren't really utilising him in the best way, and that they see him a bit more as a progressive midfielder than maybe the role he's played in. But of course, they've seen him so little, haven't they? So it'll certainly be interesting to see how he moulds his role going forward. Edward Ivans has said that's the end of Coventry with Paddy becoming a yellow. I noticed you're wearing a petrol blue polo shirt as well. So that's 2 in 1, I think.
You need to get them glasses checked, mate. Get back down the optician, Southwell. I'd call this racing green, mate, but there you go, We can have one of them viral, is it a green dress, is it a red dress? No, let's not do that. But, given Cov are playing Reading tonight, I think we all know that's going to end. So, I might have to change allegiance.
Yeah, he's got his Coventry scarf off screen, so he'll be wearing that later on. But yeah, as long as Dave doesn't see your shirt as white and gold, then we're all good. Barry Taylor has.
There's a lovely scarf on the door behind Paddy. Is that yours?
That would be my wife's, Dave. Yeah, I don't own a pink shawl. I categorically can deny that accusation.
Oh, I thought it'd suit you.
Yeah, no. I do have a few pink garments, but no, that isn't one of mine. No, and I won't be putting it on in case anybody asks me to do that. So move it along, please.
Yeah, we'll do. We'll move on with a question about Akinfenmewu. Dubai Canaries said was with a Charlton fan today who told me that Akinfenmewu was doing really well there. He was very impressed, but concerned City may recall him back in January. Is that an option for City? I've seen a few of their fans, Dave, compare him to Joe Gomez when he was at Charlton. Obviously, he got the move to Liverpool, didn't he? Which seems quite high praise for that young man.
Excellent. That's good to hear. Certainly, but I think that's 5 clean sheets in a row now for Charlton, isn't it? They're on a real hot streak, and that is since he's come into the team. I think there was one game before that, wasn't there, where they may have lost. But you know, I interviewed him during lockdown or just after lockdown, whatever. His season got curtailed with St Mirren, and I know a guy up there who's involved in the club, and that they really were impressed with him, and they think he's certainly got a career at a good level ahead of him, and they would most certainly have had him back if they could have. And he was playing consistently in the Scottish Prem. He played away at Rangers and Celtic and things like that. So the one thing with Akin is that he is a big fella. He was bigger than Ben Godfrey. I guess he's maybe not taller than Zimmerman, who is 6'5" or something, isn't he? But he's got that physicality on his side, no doubt about that. He has got a bit of experience on him as well, and he can play at left back, so that would have been helpful for him to be around at the moment. Played for Grimsby and Luton at left back in League Two when he was younger. He had a few essentially sort of growing pains problems as he was coming through the academy system at Luton, which kind of held him up. But thankfully he has family in Norwich, and that meant that Norwich kept tabs on him and eventually got him. Became the under-23s captain quite quickly. So if he can have a few months of playing consistently in League One, and Norwich still feel that they need another defensive body back in by January, then by all means get him back, and they can. They all loan clauses now, all loan deals are window to window, aren't they? So that clubs can recall in January if they wish. The only one thing you would say is it a bit of a lack of foresight in terms of letting Closer go, but then also having allowed Femayo out the door, possibly. But if he gets that game time, then he actually is a genuine option to come into the Norwich team in January, whereas he would have been sat around the fringes and really been waiting for a chance at this stage, wouldn't he?
Yeah, and I think that could have stifled his development as well. Are you a fifth choice centre back at a Championship club, or do you actually go and be a first choice at a League One club, and that can actually help your development and push you on? So it'll certainly be interesting. We'll watch his loan with interest, and hopefully maybe be able to get down to Charlton or elsewhere to see him play in the near future. That'd be good. Harry on Facebook has said, I hope we win again tomorrow. I'm very happy with the results we've had for the last few games. I hope we can continue with it. Chris Barton has said, what about Marco Stiepermann as left back cover? Played there during Daniel Farke's first season. Paddy, having seen Marco Stiepermann as a left back, that might be one that we can close down pretty quickly, maybe.
Well, you say that, but immediately my mind goes back to Sheffield United that season. I'm pretty sure he played left back that day, and I might be completely wrong now. Now I'm talking about it, but I'm pretty. Yeah, no, I think he did. I think it was the Angus Gunn 1-0 away win. The coach driver rant from Wilder. I'll have to double check that, but yeah, I think he was half decent that day as well. But yeah, as he said, he was born to score goals, so I don't think he would be taken too kindly to getting rerouted back to left back. No, yeah, no, I don't think that's likely. But who knows? It might become the Norwich lottery if it doesn't go to plan tomorrow and they get exposed and Quintil isn't fit for next week. Then I fear we might be talking about this again. And they might say internally, well, this is all great. You're having this conversation with the benefit of hindsight, and who could have foreseen? But you leave yourself that light, both at centre back and left back, and even Daniel Farke. I remember now. The final hours of this last transfer window basically said those are the two areas they do worry about for this period now running into the January window. And if the whole backdrop of between now and the next window is central defence and left back and the lack of cover, then I think supporters are well within their rights to sort of question, did they get the recruitment right again?
Yeah, absolutely. 2020 has been crazy. It would be even crazier if we ended up with Marco Stiepermann back at left back. That would be for sure. Neil Luther on YouTube has said, would love to see Bali Mumba start. Lots of confidence. And I don't think it would affect him. I think he would thrive. Lorne on Facebook has said, drop Todd as he's trying too hard and needs to reflect. Barry Taylor, Emi Buendia blows hot and cold for me. Thoughts about his role today. Still wants to try and beat one more player each time. I thought he was pretty decent at Brentford, Dave, but I take Barry's point. He can be, if he's on it, he's really on it. And if he's not, then he can fade in and out of games sometimes.
Yeah, I don't want to give too much away about my column in tomorrow's Pinkin, but it is focused on a certain man from Argentina, named in the championship team of midweek, highest rated player on the pitch by WhoScored.com. In my post-match video verdict on our YouTube channel and here on Facebook, I actually gave him my man of the match. Obviously, Tim Krul was crucial in those two saves at 1-0, but I thought Buendia was the best player on the pitch, bar maybe even Tony, who I thought was very impressive for Brentford up top. But I just think he's not at top form yet. He's not the Emmy that Norwich fell in love with, but I think he is on his way to finding his rhythm. He's looking like he's starting to enjoy himself again. And we've seen a few smiles, which we didn't see many of from Emmy, for certainly after lockdown. I know it wasn't an easy time to be smiling, but you look at the celebrations of Vrancic's goal against Wickham, and you got that lovely picture of Quintilla and Buendia applauding Mario's free kick, and just looking like he's a little bit more happy and a little bit more settled, because it's been a strange spell for him, isn't it? In terms of he literally came out and did an interview and said, I want to play at the top level. And, if that comes along, then great. But if not, I will continue to work as hard as I can for Norwich. It didn't work out. No one came in for him. There's a big price tag, or, there would probably have been some interest in him, but a big price tag meant that no hard bids came in, and there wasn't really that much fuss around him in the transfer window, was there? Which, when Norwich were relegated, who's the one player we thought was most likely to get interest? It was probably Max and Buendia, wasn't it? So, we'll see. He'll probably go and have a stinker tomorrow like Todd did on Tuesday. But I like what I'm seeing from Emmy at the moment. I think he's gradually improving. He's gradually finding his rhythm. And as far as I'm concerned, he can be the best player in the Championship this season if he can continue in that sort of way. But we need to see more from him as well. It's not just about Emmy reproducing what he did last time round. We know he's got that little bit of magic. We know he can create something special. It's about showing that he's matured. It's about showing that he has moved on as a player, that he can be more reliable, that he can hold his position that little bit better, because at the moment he's given a lot of license by Daniel Farke to roam around the pitch, as is Todd Cantwell. We know he is tenacious. We know he will get back and help out Max or whoever, but it's just about almost polishing off those final remaining rough edges and really fulfilling the potential that he's got to be a top-level player. And if he can find top form, then he's probably going to be the player that we're all talking about when the January transfer window rolls around.
Absolutely. And I don't think we're having this similar discussion with Buendia than we are with Cantwell, for example, where we're talking about dipping him out of the team. I think he's probably shown enough for a spark so far to warrant his inclusion. Right, we're going to be with you for about 5 more minutes or so, because me and Dave have got to hit the road. So this is the time we ask for your score predictions. We'll have our Google video that you all know and love coming up very shortly as well with Tony's fact this week. Can't wait to see what it is about Bristol. So much potential in that. Pad, before we do, I'll throw a couple more at you. Or one more at you. I won't be too harsh and throw 2 at you. Neil Luther has said, we're struggling to score goals but making lots of chances. Are we trying to walk the ball in as opposed to taking more shots, essentially? What do you think about that? Is it a Norwich overplaying in certain areas for you?
Well, it's interesting because we kind of went down this path with Daniel today about, I asked him about the one facet that stood out for me was the speed that Brentford moved the ball when they're in their dominant spells the other night, and you're not seeing that with Norwich in terms of just the cohesiveness, and that might just be because there's the squad turnover and it's still a work in progress, as we all know. But it was marked that the way Norwich move it is a lot more laboured. But of course, Daniel was right to say, well, more often than not, they're coming up against teams that will just sit in behind the ball. It's very difficult to have that rapier touch. But that said, the Rotherham equaliser, Okay, it was an own goal, but what a lovely one-touch bout of passing. That was sharp, progressive, Max stretching the play. We've seen glimpses of that, but we need to see more for me, I think, because it's a little bit too predictable now. But, you look at this, some people will consume stats and slavishly be guided by what they tell them. Others will take them and say, yeah, but what about the context? But purely simply put, I don't know how many shots they had midweek, but previous to that, they were having 20, 25. So in terms of the volume of shots, but then the effectiveness, as Daniel would like to say, clearly, if you're needing to go stoppage time, 87th minute, deflected goal, there's nowhere near good enough for all the shots they're having in terms of the effectiveness. So I think it's a bit of both. I think it's the style of play and maybe the extra pass or the extra touch could be streamlined, the touch, but also it is when they do get them shooting positions. We've just had a good point and agreed with a lot with what Dave said, but Ebi Buendia the other night, absolutely brilliant bit of skill to fashion that chance early on, cuts back, puts the defender on his backside, keeper to beat, and he basically, I know it went for a corner, but the ball was clearing the bar anyway. And you just think, well, you've done the hard work to get into the shooting position. So really, it's just that calmness Daniel keeps talking about, a bit more clinicalness, a bit more greedy in the box. And you would think with Pookie, with Ida when he's available, with Jordan Hugel, they have these players, but hitherto we're not seeing that clinical edge. And until we do see that, I think we're going to be in this kind of contradictory. Well, there's a lot to admire in the performances, but the results are. They're having to work so hard to get the results. And until they can add the attacking edge to a lot of their build-up play, that's going to continue to be a debate, I think.
Yeah, and of course they had this debate again in the Premier League last season, didn't we? So hopefully it's not something that rumbles on. Let's get the Google video now, and then we'll get into a lot of score predictions because with the exception of maybe 4 or 5, I think most of them are saying one scoreline, which is quite interesting. Here's the Google video. Look out for that fact about Bristol. There you go, the biggest manufacturer of hot air balloons. There's probably a joke there somewhere about being full of hot air, but we to that. Yeah. Dave, Tony will flash up some of your all guys' score predictions on the screen. How do you see this one going tomorrow for Norwich City? It's potentially a very difficult game for them.
I can't believe that Tony missed out the big Bristol City stat. The only Fools and Horses tower block, Nelson Mandela House, being within sight of Ashton Gate. Come on, Tony, up your game. But yeah, I think this is a real difficult one, and I would take a draw. Somebody pointed out earlier, didn't they, that 1-1 and 2-2 would replicate the title-winning season. And frankly, as long as you get a point away from home, then great. And if you get a clean sheet as well, even better. But yeah, I think we came into this when we recorded the pod last week and said if they can get 4 points from this week, then they're going to be really happy. So I don't know. Bristol City have hit a little funny patch, haven't they? They're without a win in 4. They had problems converting at Bournemouth in midweek. They had quite a few chances, but Bournemouth again dominated the game. And that Danjuma, who scored against Norwich, scored another lovely goal. He's looking like a real player at this level. So I've got a sneaky feeling that Norwich might nick it 1-0 tomorrow, but I don't know why.
I hope so. I've been trying to think of the last win I saw Norwich away from home, and I think it was probably Everton last November. So it's been nearly a year for me without a Norwich win away, without the FA Cup, of course, which I don't know if you count penalty shootouts anyway. Well, Burnley, I guess. Pad, I don't know if you'll be watching along tomorrow, but how do you expect this one to go? I think it's probably, although as Dave alluded to, Bristol City were very streaky under Lee Johnson. Their previous manager, Dean Holden, of course, was his assistant, has now come into the hot seat. It's going to be interesting to see if that continues, because they've had 4 wins in a row and then 4 without a win. So how do you see this one going tomorrow?
Well, it's very hard to predict because, as you say, their form line is literally divide down the middle. But the fact that they're searching for a win, and I always find that quite interesting. But when we're talking about Bournemouth, they've gone down the same route. Eddie Howe's essentially his former assistant has taken it on there. Tyndall. I don't know. It never fills me with a lot of confidence in the longer term when the assistant steps out the shadows and takes it on. So good luck to him. But I can see them maybe by the end of the season he won't be in charge, because the expectations of that place, can't think of the owner's name now, but he's obviously backed it in a big way. Ashton Gate, wonderful stadium now. They expect to deliver a massive city in terms of population. Bristol, they would expect to be able to sustain a Premier League football club, and that is the ultimate ambition. Whenever you go down there, you can see it's geared up to that. So he's under pressure clearly to deliver certainly a top 6 campaign for me this season. As we know, 1 or 2 familiar faces in that lineup. We've seen Corey Smith there, Chris Martin as well, gone there this season. So it's a club looking to push on and kick on, but so are Norwich. So for me, yeah, I'd agree with Dave. I think the odd goal in 3, maybe 2-1 Norwich. I've seen quite a few of those flash through. I can see, bearing in mind, if it was the other way around and it started the season with no wins and 4 and we're now 4 out of 4, then I'd probably flip that round. But I just think Norwich, as we've seen in the last 4 games, never say die. So if they can just have that clinical edge, then they'll have enough of the ball. They'll create chances. If they take a few, I think it could be a good day for Norwich tomorrow, yeah.
Just finally, I saw a comment of someone asking for a Coventry prediction tonight. Obviously, they play Reading. They seem to be on Sky TV every week. I'm not sure what it is, but they're playing Reading tonight. How optimistic are you feeling about that one?
I'm inclined to say that's because there's goals guaranteed, but not in the Coventry net, sadly. That's why they're on every week. Well, I mean, I won't be able to watch it because my wife's birthday, so that wouldn't go down too well. But that might be a blessing in disguise, to be fair, because I would like to actually see how the hell Reading have gone 7 wins and 1 draw. Only Middlesbrough, the only team to deny them out of 8 games. That's some going, even in the topsy-turvy world of the Championship. So at some point, I'd like to see what on earth they're trying to build there. New coach gone in. So ultimately, yeah, no, 2-1 Cov was the prediction. No chance. Two shots maybe, but not 2 goals now, sadly. Reading win.
There we go. Guys, I think we'll leave it there. Thank you very much for joining me. Thank you very much for watching. Pinkin.com, of course, the place to go for all your Norwich City news and views. Me and Dave will be at Ashton Gate tomorrow. It's going to be a really intriguing encounter. As someone mentioned, Bristol City have got a few injuries as well. Chris Martin in their lineup. Plenty of subplots there as well. Going to be a fascinating game to witness. Thank you all very much for watching. You know where to find us on the various social media platforms, podcasts as well, coming over the weekend. We'll see you very soon. Stay safe.